far as finding a position in a career. There is actually a process. And Nick, you mentioned networking. That is 2 of our 10 steps. It is that crucial today. It's not applying on the job boards. It's literally almost creating your own niche in there for openings and creating those openings. And then, obviously, as I mentioned, we're here also to help the Career Centers heavily as best as we can, helping them accomplish more with the challenges that they have today in helping the students. And with that, and then we'll move on, I did want to mention about those of you in school or just out, the most important aspect you can be doing right now is going to your career centers. There's nothing more important, actually. You know, they're the last line of defense. You know, you go to college for one main reason, at least. I know it's to have fun, but one main reason is to find a good position, find a good job, to enhance your career, to start it, and get a jump start at that. And where's the best place to go on campus? Well, it is the Career Center, and they are there to help. They truly are. So my suggestion to you students is give them a call, set an appointment, and you'll be so glad that you did. You know, there was a recent study that was just out, and among seniors, 71% who received job offers had used the Career Center, while just under 29% that got offers had not. And they also found that the likelihood of getting a job offer increased with the frequency of the use, so that those that used the Career Center, say, 4 times a semester, were more likely to have job offers than those who used it once a semester. That's just like our system with Jobs for Grads now. Use it. They're there to help, and I can't share that enough. And with that, move on, Nick. Thank you.
No, thank you, Bill. I think that's a very important piece of advice. You know, the Career Centers are there to help people, and they're definitely there to try to further people along with their road, so to speak, and their path. And they're a very valuable resource that, unfortunately, sometimes, like you mentioned, get overlooked. So I think that's a really valuable piece of advice you're giving there, Bill.
Great.
So we're moving on to the process now. And as we just sort of talked about, asking questions is the first part of the process. And there's a lot of reasons that asking questions is so important. And before I get going through the bullets on the slide and start talking about some of the questions that are valuable, it's as simple as this. If you're asking yourself the wrong questions, you're never going to find the right answer. It's really that simple. And unfortunately, it's easy with all the distraction and all the opportunities and all the noise that's going on in today's society. It's sometimes easy to get focused on the wrong questions. And I mention that because really asking questions is the most important and easiest way to control your thoughts. And this is really a vital part of interviewing for a job as well as being successful in your career. Because really what you think about, if you go into an interview thinking, I hope he doesn't ask this question, I hope he doesn't ask this question, I hope he doesn't ask this question. He asked this question, what's your response going to be? You know, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if you go into an interview saying, if you ask this question, I'll be able to spin it this way, that way, or the other way, depending on what he's mentioned to me before. And you know, you can change the entire way of looking at an opportunity in a scenario by making sure that you're asking yourself the right questions. And I think that's hugely valuable, especially in the job search process, because really when you look at what a job search is, you almost have a 180-degree view of opportunities in front of you. And like Bill mentioned, if you're going on job boards and sending out resumes, those aren't bad things to be doing. But they're also not incredibly effective things either, because you're not really focusing your efforts into one area. And what questions allow you to do is to focus your efforts and really control their thoughts and your approach to the job search you're going to be taking. So I also want to say that it's incredibly important to be realistically optimistic. And that's sort of a nice way of saying you have to be brutally honest with yourself. You know, if you're applying to bunch of positions that you absolutely know that this is what you want to do with your life, but no one's going to accept an application for that job unless you have a PhD, and you don't have a PhD, you're fighting a very long, hard, uphill battle. You know? Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't strive for that position. Maybe you should take a different course. You know, sometimes what people find in job searches and in businesses as well is that the shortest distance between 2 points is not always a straight line. You know, sometimes you have to go through something else or somewhere else or do something else along the way to get you where you want to go. And that's, you know, that's just another testament to why having a clear vision of where you're trying to get to allows you to break down the steps you need to get there into bite-sizable and manageable tasks, right? And so it's important to be realistically optimistic so that you're not almost delusioning yourself to think that, hey, I can do whatever I want and I'm sure they'll hire me just as soon as they see my resume. But at the same time, you're recognizing that you have tremendous potential because, like we talked about earlier, you have the ability to learn. And if you're taking that opportunity seriously, you're going to find yourself a very valuable asset very shortly down the line here. So what are some of the questions we want to be asking ourselves? Well, there's a lot of different ways you can judge an opportunity or a career path or a company, depending on how you want to view it in that particular scenario. But something that I think is very important is what beliefs anchor me. You know, what values do I find important? What at the core, what is my core? What are my core beliefs that I find important? And are those the same type of beliefs I want to see in the company that I'm working with? You know, what desires drive me? What really pushes me to get up and give it my all in the morning, right? What really gets me going? What knowledge and skills have I acquired? You know, it's important to know what your assets are, what your strengths are. Strengths and weaknesses are two of the most important things when you go in for an interview. Making sure that you have those down pat is probably the most important thing you can do. So you want to be able to take a realistic tally almost of what your knowledge and skills are. And then what interests, curiosities, environment help you grow. And this is a really important one because we talked about whether you're transitioning careers, you've been in the industry for 20 years and you're transitioning career, or you've never interviewed for a job before and this is your first job search you're ever conducted. It doesn't matter because people 99.9% of the time, unless you graduated from MIT and you aced the SATs and are the valedictorian in your class, they are not hiring for what you already know. You know? And you know, maybe some people on this call are.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably most of them aren't because there's very few MIT valedictorians running around.
Right.
So that's an interesting thing because you want to make sure you're putting yourself in an environment that you can flourish in. You know, they're not hiring you for your skills right now. You know, we never hire people on skills, right? We hire people for what can they learn to do. Our industry is always changing. If we hire someone that only has a set skill set right now that's never going to grow and improve, that's a bad bet. You know, so you want to make sure you're putting yourself in an opportunity where you can flourish in the long run. And that's going to be different for every individual.
Yeah. I think that's so important, Nick, what you're sharing here is that, you know, you really have to have that passion and you have to be able to show that to an interviewer, to an employer. And it's so much easier to show that passion when you're interviewing for a position that you want and you know why you want it. And then I guess the other real quick is, you know, no one knows more about you than you. So while this can be intimidating, you know, especially if you haven't been on many interviews, but they don't know about you. You do. And I think that should be reassuring in itself. But you're so right about, you know, knowing what drives me and who I am and being able to, you know those 3 or 4 hot points as we were talking about. That's so important.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then one of the ones that complements that really well, I think, is, you know, do I take responsibility for my actions? Or do I tend to point fingers and put blame on other people? And this is a big one, because the more, and this is almost counterintuitive, but the more responsibility you accept for your current position, the more in control you are of your life going forward. And that's a powerful point, because a lot of people are saying, oh, well, my interests and my values and my skills aren't valued in this market. Well, maybe they are, but maybe they're not. But I'm willing to bet if you really had a strong grasp of them and you understood how to focus them the right way and channel them in the right direction, you could find people that would really value the stuff that you value. And you could find people that would really value the skills you have. So it's all about taking responsibility for yourself going forward. And then next is sort of back to the knowledge and skills. But what are your greatest talents? And how, if you, do you use them? Because talents without any execution are basically useless, right? It's not what you're capable of, it's what you do, right? And then the last two are, I think, two of my favorite, Bill, and I know we talked about these the other day. What do you want your life to look like? And did I get better today? And, unfortunately, I wish I could say that there was a magic pill you take, and you take that pill and you go to a job interview and they're going to hire you at the exact position you want with more money than you would have ever expected that they would pay you. Unfortunately, there isn't. Unfortunately, for some people, this job search will take more than a week. It'll take more than a month. It'll take more than 3 months. Sometimes that's how it goes, especially if you are really pursuing a specific passion. But what you can control is, did I get better today? Did I improve today? You're not going to go to sleep and wake up and be a mathematical genius. You're not going to go to sleep and wake up, unless, of course, you already were a mathematical genius, and wake up and being the most talented writer on the planet, right? But you can make sure that you're doing everything in your power to make sure that you're getting better every day. And that's really something that I stress as being hugely important for a job search, because it can get discouraging and disillusioning, but it's important to make sure that you're constantly striving to go forward and grow.
Well, that's a great point, Nick, about that, about getting better. Am I better today than I was yesterday? An old equation that we've used many, many times, part of our 10 steps, but is, attitude times efficiency times exposure equals results. And we talked about that passion. You really have to have that. You've got to have that attitude and believe in yourself. That's number one. But then that exposure, of getting out there and doing it, and then evaluating that. Geez, could I have done that better? What did I learn from that experience? And becoming more efficient at it. And you're so right. That's what will give us at least more results, I would think, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're really working off each other really well, because that's a great segue into my next point, Bill. Create your vision, right? And what we were just talking about will come down later on the slide, but create your vision. So once you ask yourself these tough questions, and make no mistake, some of these questions, for some of us, are going to be more difficult than others. And that's something that if you really want to pursue the passion and have an opportunity that you're going to really truly be fulfilled and happy with, these are the type of questions you have to